Hey everybody, it's me here, and Stan Lee has passed away at age 95. He was an American comic book writer, editor, publisher, and producer. But those words don't do him justice. He was so much more than that. He helped create some of the most iconic and influential characters in history. But if you want to know who Stan Lee really was, you can't start anywhere other than right here. Panel 1 of Amazing Spider-Man number 36. In this moment right here, we see two different versions of Peter Parker. One who is bullied and belittled by his peers, and one who is looked up to and revered as a hero by the same people. Here is how Stan Lee described the significance of this image. The story was about being different and how even if you're not popular or accepted, if you have abilities that make you different from other people, it could be useful, it could be helpful, and people may even admire you for it. I think that's why Spider-Man is still the most popular character in the world. He's just like us. He goes through good times and bad times. He's popular and he's not popular. He's rich and he's poor. But one thing he always does is he tries to do the right thing no matter what. In many ways, Stan Lee created the modern superhero. Before Stan took over the reins at Marvel Comics, superheroes were generally seen as goody two-shoes. They were always wholesome and moral. They never made mistakes, they were perfect. They didn't have any problems, but as we all know, life isn't like that. And so when Stan took over, he wanted to change things. He wanted to create real characters that we could all relate to. Characters who struggled with making the right decisions, characters who made mistakes, flawed characters. Stan said, "I always felt that if a character was interesting enough and complex enough, that they were believable, the audience would accept them." So we began developing characters with flaws and neuroticisms that audiences could identify with, and these characters were not only relatable, but their problems were also relevant to the times that they were written in. During the Silver Age of comics, most heroes were still World War II veterans. They wore uniforms and followed orders, but now the world was changing. We were entering a new era where young adults were rebelling against authority. The Vietnam War was raging, and the assassinations of John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. had left the country disillusioned. So Stan created characters who reflected these times. He created the X-Men, mutants who are often feared and hated for being different. He created Black Panther, the first black superhero to headline his own comic book. He created the Fantastic Four, a team of misfits led by a flawed but well-meaning father figure. And he co-created Doctor Strange, a character who grappled with addiction and depression. Another way that Stan Lee changed comics forever was with his dialogue. His characters spoke like real people. Sure, sometimes they used exaggerated versions of their speech patterns, but there was no question that these characters sounded like people you could meet in real life. Stan said, "We decided that our characters should talk like people, not like the stiff leading men of the 1940s. We tried to write dialogue that snapped and crackled the way people's repartee is in real life. We believed that if the reader could read the book aloud and enjoy the dialogue as literature, then it was good." To demonstrate this point, here's how the first page of The Amazing Spider-Man #1 would look if it was written today. And here's how Stan Lee wrote it 60 years ago. See the difference? Stan's dialogue sounds natural, fluid, like how a real person would speak. It flows off the page. That's why his characters sound so real. That's why we love them so much. Of course, Spider-Man wasn't the only thing that Stan Lee helped create. He's responsible for some of the most iconic characters and stories ever told. He co-created the X-Men with Jack Kirby. He helped develop the Avengers alongside numerous other writers and artists. He's responsible for creating the Fantastic Four, the Hulk, Thor, Iron Man, Daredevil, Doctor Strange, Ant-Man, the Black Panther, the Inhumans, the Silver Surfer, and the list goes on and on and on. There is nothing that Stan Lee couldn't do. There was also nothing that Stan Lee wouldn't do. He made cameos in every single Marvel film released from 2008 until 2019. Even though he was mostly retired by that time, he still made an effort to appear in every movie. It became something of a running gag. Fans knew to look out for it. And he was always willing to donate his time to help promote these movies because that's just the kind of guy that he was. When asked why he kept making these cameos, he replied, "As long as people are still enjoying it and getting a kick out of it, why stop?" But honestly, his cameos were more than just a funny addition to these films. They were a way of passing the torch from the man who had helped create these characters to the new generation of filmmakers and actors who were carrying the torch forward. Stan understood that one day he wouldn't be around anymore and these characters would still need to be told. So he did everything that he could to help ensure that they would live on. He appeared in 30 films over 11 years. He didn't think twice about it. He did it because that's who he was. I'm pretty sure that you know this, but just in case you don't, I should probably mention it. Stan Lee was also known for having a very distinctive voice. It's probably one of the most recognizable voices in the world, and in the 1990s, he used that voice to share one of the most important messages of Spider-Man's history. The world can be a cruel and unforgiving place, especially when you're different. People will pick on you, they'll make fun of you. They'll try to hurt you, sometimes physically and sometimes emotionally. But Stan Lee had a message for those people. A message that he delivered time and time again. He said, "With great power comes great responsibility." If you look throughout Spider-Man's history, you'll see this theme repeated over and over again. Peter Parker gained spider-like abilities after being bitten by a radioactive spider. This meant that he was different from everyone else. And as a result, he was often targeted by other people. Sometimes it was out of jealousy, sometimes it was out of fear. But regardless of the reason, Peter always tried to do the right thing. He helped people in need. He stood up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. And he never gave up, no matter how difficult things got. Here's another example. Miles Morales is a teenager who lives in Brooklyn. He's half black and half Hispanic. He grew up in a rough neighborhood, but he never let that define him. Instead, he focused on his dreams and aspirations. He wanted to be a photographer, even though everyone around him thought it was a waste of time. He wanted to make a difference in the world, even though everyone around him thought it was impossible. But Miles never gave up. He kept trying, even when things got tough. And eventually he succeeded. He became a successful photographer and he proved to everyone that he could achieve anything he set his mind to. Or how about this one? Kamala Khan is a Pakistani-American teenager who lives in Jersey City. She's a big fan of superheroes, but she never thought that she could be one herself. She felt like she didn't have the strength or the courage, but one day everything changed. She went to an Avengers convention and she met some real superheroes. They inspired her to be her best self, to use her powers for good, to stand up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. And Kamala took this message to heart. She became Ms. Marvel, one of the most powerful and inspiring heroes in the Marvel Universe. These are just a few examples of the many, many characters that Stan Lee helped create. And each one of them embodies the message of "with great power comes great responsibility." These characters may be fictional, but their message is very real. We all have the ability to make a difference in the world, no matter how small that difference may seem. We all have the ability to be heroes, even if we don't realize it. So next time you're feeling down, remember the words of Stan Lee and the heroes that he created. With great power comes great responsibility. Thank you, Stan. Thank you for everything. Rest in peace.